I'm here with Jeff Ross. He is founder and director of the San Francisco Documentary Film Fest, which kicks off on Thursday, October 14th. They're featuring over 60 films spanning 12 countries around the world, and all of the films are being shown at the Roxy in San Francisco. So, Jeff, you founded this film festival 10 years ago. Congratulations.
Thank you.
On your success and all of these incredible films. Tell us what really excites you this year.
Well, I would have to go through all 60 of the films to
sure.
properly answer that question. So I think what excites me about this year is just the wide variety of films in the festival. Like the documentary doesn't just mean one thing. It doesn't just mean something you have to watch in class, or something about war in Africa or something. There's actually quite a lot of variety, and so I guess I personally really like the personal stories, and there's a lot of them this year with the personal subjects. Just to list a few, just for whoever's looking at this can look them up if you like personal stories. But coming immediately to mind would be a film called Biker Fox, another a local film called Family Affair, and there's May I Be Frank, which is another local film.
Great film. And
let's see, there are films about George Lucas and Bobby Fischer. And OC 87, which is a sort of a first-person narrative. It's like the filmmaker is also the subject of his own film, which is really great. Film about obsessive compulsion and other sort of interesting parts of oneself. And then that's on the one sort of very personal side, and then the festival also will encompass sort of a more broader stories about, say, environmentalism. On Coal River and Dreamland are both films of, if you have interest in environmental issues. And
also what I love about on Coal River is just the focus on a small community in West Virginia who we really hardly ever hear about or see in the national media.
So the film takes a big issue and breaks it down into a small personal story about these people's their lives, and then fun stuff like Toyland, which is about the history of toys, like games and things, so it's a wide variety of stuff. We have some music documentaries about some bands. So yeah, it's the variety is really the thing. I like that, you can come down. I mean, if you were to come down to the Roxy on a Saturday afternoon and watch 3 films in a row, there'll be 3 completely different stories. They'll all be documentaries, they'll all be nonfiction, unscripted, real-life stuff, but just taking you on all sorts of different journeys.
And we're lucky to live in this area where there are just so many film festivals throughout the year. You've been doing this for 10 years, and I'm so glad that documentaries are still doing so well. Mm-hmm. What changes have you seen over the years? And I don't know. I don't want to say what interests people because there's so much out there.
Right. Well, when we started this festival in 2000, it was sort of before documentaries were sort of big business in Hollywood, and they were still small. And then Michael Moore's movies started getting really popular, and other movies like Super Size Me came out that they were really popular in theaters. So I think a lot of filmmakers have gone the documentary route, where maybe they would have gone the narrative feature route. They've realized that they can express themselves and present good stories to people that don't have to be scripted and have car chases in them and stuff. Although, a documentary with a car chase in it would be pretty neat, I suppose. Explosions and things. But so that's the thing. I think more filmmakers are making documentaries, and I think people who are passionate about a subject or picking up a camera, where in the past they might have picked up a pen and written a book. Now we live in such a visual age with YouTube and everything else. You aim a camera at it and make a movie, and I think so. That's a good way of getting stories out that may not have been told before. And then things like my festival exist to present them. To an audience. And the thing about the festival that's different than seeing the same films on at home on your TV or on the internet, is that you're actually sitting in a room with a bunch of people also interested in the subject, and often the case the filmmaker is there in the room with you, and you can talk to them at the end of the screening, and have an interaction and just learn more. And it's just makes it much more personal than if you just went to the multiplex or if you just watched it on your sofa, sitting on your sofa.
Right. The other thing that really struck me, Jeff was just on my radio show, Your Call, and we were talking about the fact that filmmakers often spend 4 or 5 years really following the subject. And I think because we live in a time with so much information, we tend to take a lot of a lot of art for granted, frankly.
Right.
And talk a little bit about just the art that goes into this, the time that goes into this, the passion.
And, you know, especially with a lot of these documentaries, the filmmakers start out with the subject and a camera, and they start taping, and they'll tape and tape and tape and tape. They don't actually know where the story's going to be, if there's going to be a story, you know, when does it end. I mean, that's one of the more interesting questions at a Q&A session is like, how did you know that the movie was over? Because it doesn't. It's real life. Like, your real life hasn't ended yet, right? So the thing tomorrow could be the most fascinating part of your life, you know, that hasn't happened yet. So so that's really interesting. And so the filmmakers will have to, you know, they have to at some point stop shooting, and then they have to at some point sit down and like, what do we have here, and build a story out of it. And so when the audience, you're sitting in the audience watching it, you really are taken on a journey, you know, with the filmmaker. The filmmaker is presenting the story to you, and it's very different than watching a film, you know, that's a narrative, you know, that's what's written down with a script and storyboarded and however many pages it is, and we can go back and reshoot things. Like, you don't go back and reshoot a documentary necessarily, you know, because that's, you know, it's just taking place in time. And so I think that's what makes it so special, and that's what I think it's a lot makes these movies so special. And then the commitment and the passion from the filmmaker is evident. You know, to stick with it for so long. You know, one of the films, the local film in the festival called A Family Affair, took 8 years to shoot.
Wow.
And so it's shot as by one of the members of the family that he's shooting, his own family. And there's revelations that appear, and like, you know, you sort of, so you sit down at the beginning of the movie, and at the end of the movie you just witnessed 8 years of this family's life, you know, that you would never have, you know, you know these people as well as they do. It's fascinating, it's wonderful, and it's really special.
God, it's a reminder to thank your filmmaker.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yes.
Because, well, what's the funding situation like right now?
I'm not a filmmaker, so I'm actually not so I'm not so familiar with how that is done. I mean, a lot of it is credit cards. You know, I mean, I started this festival with my own credit card, so I can relate. You know, you borrow money, you get family money, you get support from your family. If you're lucky enough to get funders, you know, you go out, and actually nowadays Kickstarter campaigns are popular. I think. You know, and often just like with a regular film, you shoot a bit, and then you go out, you take that out there, and you see this is worth funding, and you get funding for it. But again, I'm not a filmmaker, so I am not a good person to ask that question.
Well, thank you, Jeff, because your documentary film fest is excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jeff Ross is founder and director of the San Francisco Documentary Film Fest. Kicks off Thursday, October 14th, featuring 45 films shot in over 15 countries. And you can find the link right below this video. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.